Fun podcast, the show that talks about entertainment, sports, music, and inspirational stories for all to enjoy. We're glad that you could join us today. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Now, here is your host, Albert Pineda.
Welcome, everybody, to the Casting for Fun podcast. I am your host, Albert Pineda, and this is going to be a special edition of the Casting for Fun podcast. This episode is going to be released on Thursday, June 23rd, a little break from the norm on what I usually do, which is releasing episodes every single Tuesday. I'm still going to be keeping the Tuesday schedule, but this is just going to be an additional episode because there was some recent breaking news that happened last week on June the 14th that I'm really excited about. This is the recently announced partnership between Major League Soccer and Apple to broadcast their games on Apple TV Plus starting next year in 2023. I was super excited when I heard the news. I was just ecstatic. I was glued to the internet, just gathering any information I could because I absolutely love soccer. I especially love the LA Galaxy. So to have the opportunity to stream games wherever I want is really cool and enticing and exciting for me. But I have to remember that technically it doesn't necessarily mean I can do it wherever I want because as of right now, I am an Android user and through my Android tablet and my smartphone, which is the Galaxy Flip 3, I'm not able to access Apple TV. Or what I've discovered is technically I can't download the app. But what I could do is actually look up the website mobilely and stream Google TV Plus. But you could get Google TV Plus, Apple TV Plus. Sorry, Apple TV Plus. I can't get it. You can get it in so many different ways, like on smart TVs, on streaming devices like a Roku or Amazon Fire Stick. Then, of course, there is the Apple TV itself, which you obviously could get. So it got me thinking that, you know what, to talk about this news would be really exciting, but to also talk about really cool stuff, like tech stuff, would be a really cool subject to cover on the Casting for Fun podcast, since I haven't really touched on it yet. So it's kind of a little surprising because I love tech stuff. By no means am I the expert. I have lots of family members and friends who are really good and really knowledgeable. So it would be great to get them on the show to talk about tech. And tech's always improving and advancing, so you can never run out of stuff to talk about when it comes to tech. But for this episode, I'm going to try and do something really cool. It's just going to be me talking, but what I've done is I've actually gotten pre-recorded comments from friends who had been on the podcast previously to talk about their take on Apple products, the partnership deal for streaming with Apple and Major League Soccer, and other things like that, which I think will be really informative and fun. So you'll be hearing later from my good friends, Ryan and Stephanie Ferrante, Marcello Ambriz, and Eddie Ramirez, all of which have appeared previously on the podcast. So I'm excited for that. But also just on the subject of content creating, which I'm going to get into a little bit later, I wanted to take this moment to actually acknowledge some really cool content users who have helped put on the podcast, which I think is really fun. Most of all the editing I do by myself, but if you've noticed, I've gotten to use really cool theme songs. So I wanted to give a shout out to upbeat.com, which is a website where you can download royalty-free music. There is a service fee that you would need to pay, but aspiring musicians can actually record music, put it on the website, and have it available for using for content creators, like if you're making a YouTube channel or a podcast like I do. So upbeat.com is a really cool site. Fiverr is also a really cool site as well, because you have content creators who are actually offering their services. And I've used that to actually hire voice actors to do voice intros for me. So, if you've noticed from like episode 12 on, that was the episode that I interviewed Mike and Lisa Kidd. I've been using a voice intro actor or actress to introduce the show, which was really cool. So I just paid them a minimal fee, like $5, and they recorded a voice intro for me so I can insert it into every single episode. So I think it makes my podcast sound a little more polished, a little more professional, which I really enjoy. And I hope those who are listening to the show really enjoy it too. So big shout out to content creators. It's really fun hobby to get into. And yeah, it's actually really exciting. So give those sites a look if you're interested. Fiverr and upbeat.com. Okay. So I'm going to be talking about, again, the deal between Major League Soccer and Apple. Plus, I'm going to also be talking about Apple products and inserting these audio clips that I've gotten from my friends. So I'm going to take just a little break, and I'll be back very soon to continue on this conversation for this week's episode of the Casting for Fun podcast. Okay, welcome back to the Casting for Fun podcast. So first, let's talk about this deal. I mean, this is really exciting news for me that Major League Soccer and Apple would make a partnership. Before we get to that, though, we need to discuss the history of sports teams making deals with networks in order to broadcast their games. Because for sports to be successful, you have to have the TV deals. You have to show your product on TV. For being a spectator, that would be amazing and awesome. But for sports to be successful, yes, you had to have the TV, had to have your games on TV in order for fans to watch it, so they can continue to invest money into your team, into the league, which makes the team grow and makes the business financially successful, and the fans get the product they want. So it's a win-win for everybody, basically. But for the longest time, teams had deals with local networks or even like national networks to have their games on television. And the LA teams, which are like my favorite teams, Dodgers and Lakers, that's been no exception. But things change for the better or for the worse, depending on your point of view. In 2012, when Time Warner launched the Time Warner Cable Sports Network, later renamed Spectrum, and they struck a deal exclusively with the Lakers to have all their games broadcast there, with a few exceptions that, like, ESPN and would get and TNT, whoever it is, would get nationally televised games here and there. But it was good in the sense that Spectrum was offering the Lakers and the Galaxy, who signed a contract with them, additional content like the backstage segments, which were really cool to get really in-depth analysis of the team and get to see him in a really cool light that you don't always get to see. But the bad news was obviously that as a business, Time Warner didn't want to have to share their broadcasting rights of the Lakers and the Galaxy with other networks. So it became kind of a hassle. If you're a fan, you had to have Time Warner Cable / Spectrum. Otherwise, you couldn't watch the games. And that was really frustrating for a lot of people. Some people could have been really angry and upset and didn't want to have to switch. Some people maybe did it begrudgingly. I kind of did. So it can be, not so much a good thing to make it exclusive where you can only go to one place in order to get the product you want. So I can understand that perspective for fans being upset, because again, I was one of those fans. But what's interesting to note with the deal, the Galaxy had signed a 10-year deal with Spectrums in order to have them on the channel, whereas the Lakers and then later the Dodgers, and the Dodger fiasco was way worse than what happened with the Lakers. But the Galaxy had just signed a 10-year deal, which is now expired. So the Galaxy are free to do what they want as far as the streaming content, for the broadcasting content goes for their games, which brings up an interesting point. So there's a Galaxy podcast that I like to listen to called The Corner of the Galaxy. The host of that show, Josh Geshman, had been discussing this last year, that there were tentative talks that the league had been planning to do like a streaming deal where all the teams could actually be on one network and there would be no blockouts. So you can watch any game from any team anytime you want, which is a really cool concept in itself. And they had to kind of wait for all the teams who had broadcasting deals in place with other companies to expire in order for this to work. So again, the Galaxies just happened to expire last year. So it worked out pretty good timing wise for them. But so there had been talks that a deal like this was going to be made. And finally it got done, which was really cool and really exciting. So the deal is that Major League Soccer will be teaming up with Apple to broadcast their games starting in 2023 for every single team. No blockouts. I know there's been kind of a problem where if you're in that market, you're not able to get the game for certain services. Like, for instance, ESPN Plus was showing MLS games, but if you lived in the LA area, you couldn't get the LA Galaxy games because you'd have to go to the network that had the contract, Spectrum. in order to watch LA Galaxy games that weren't nationally televised. Whereas, say, my family who lives in Arizona, if they had ESPN Plus living outside the LA area, they could get a LA Galaxy game on ESPN Plus. So to not have to deal with blackouts was a really cool idea. I mean, very enticing idea for fans to want to participate in that service in order to get the content that you want for the watch, to be able to watch the teams that you want to watch. And especially your local team, which is obviously going to be the team that you're rooting for. So what I want to do now is actually read an article from The Verge. This is going to be probably explaining it a little better than I can, as far as like what the deal consists of. So when this deal happened when it was announced back in the 14th, so just last week, I was just scouring the internet, wanted to get any information I can. So here we go. This is from TheVerge.com. Apple will offer streams of every Major League Soccer MLS match from early 2023 through 2032 in the Apple TV app. The two organizations announced in a major deal revealed Tuesday. While some games may still air on linear TV networks like ESPN and Fox, this gives Apple the global exclusive on an NFL Sunday ticket style offering for the league. To watch matches, fans will be able to subscribe to a new, currently unnamed MLS streaming service that will be available exclusively through the Apple TV app, according to Apple's press release. A broad selection of MLS and League Cup matches will be available to Apple TV Plus subscribers, with a limited number of matches available for free. If you're a full season ticket holder, you'll get access to the new streaming service as well. Unlike many sports streaming deals, there will be no blockouts or restrictions, which I mentioned before. That was really a big, really important thing to note for this deal. So a couple of things here that I wanted to go over really quick. It looks like for this deal, you have to have the Apple TV subscription service, which runs at the price of $4.99 per month. But it looks like you have to have an additional service that you would pay. So it's kind of similar to what the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship, does with ESPN Plus. So you pay the ESPN Plus monthly fee to get UFC content, but to get the access to their pay-per-views, you have to pay like a certain amount. I forget, like, I don't know, like 60 or 70 bucks, which is still kind of expensive. But it looks like for the MLS deal, you will get certain games for free. Well, not for free, because you're paying for the Apple service, but when you're paying for the Apple TV Plus service, you get certain MLS games for free, but to get everything, you'll have to pay an unnamed price. So that's the $1 million question for this thing to be really successful. How much are they going to actually ask us to pay? Me personally, as a fan, I think I'd be willing to pay between, I don't know, $10, $15 extra a month to get everything MLS. But we'll have to wait and see what they announce what the price will be and how much, because that could be a huge deal maker or breaker for people to want to sign up. And then, of course, it's an interesting point that they mentioned here that season ticket holders, full season ticket holders, will be able to get the streaming service for free. And I used to be a full season ticket holder for the Galaxy, but now at my older age with kids, wife and family, it's just too hard to make it every weekend to the Dignity House Sports Park. I was trying to think what the stadium is called now. So let's go on with the article. Apple and MLS haven't detailed when you can sign up for the service or how much it will cost, but say that information will be announced in the next coming months. Apple is paying a minimum of $250 million per year to the MLS for the game starting in 2023. The MLS partnership is a massive step up from Apple's relatively small offering of Major League Baseball games on Fridays, and seems to indicate that live sports could be a priority for its future service plans. Apple is rumored to be vying for the actual NFL Sunday ticket. At the same time, rumors have linked Netflix to a bid for the rights on Formula One. Other streamers with live sports deals beyond Disney, ESPN Plus include Amazon and the NFL, HBO Max with the NHL, and Soccer and Peacock's various soccer offerings. Excuse me. Okay, so there we go. Yeah, this is really exciting news. Depending on how much it's going to cost for that extra amount. It would be cool if there was no additional amount and we can just get MLS games at the same price of $4.99 per month for Apple TV. But it looks like we'll have to be paying a little bit more. How much more? We'll have to just wait and see. But that being said, I think this is an amazing deal. I think this is going to be really awesome, really great. That, as I mentioned at the top of the show, it does put me in a little bit of a bind So what am I going to do? I mean, should I get an iPad? Should I get an iPhone? I've been an Android user since I've been using smartphones. So it would be seem kind of strange to switch now. But that being said, I did initially learn how to navigate smart devices using the iPod Touch, if you remember that. I mean, iPods have since been discontinued now, so you can't even buy an iPod. But the iPod Touch, which was very, very basically identical to the iPhone, with the exception that it wasn't a phone, was how I actually learned how to navigate. And then my very first smartphone after that was the HTC Evo. And from there, I just bought Samsung phones, usually Galaxy. And currently I'm using the Galaxy Flip 3, which I absolutely love. I love how compact and small it is, and just it's a great, awesome phone. So that leaves me with the dilemma: should I invest in an iPhone, iPad? I'm wondering, for my listeners who are listening, do you prefer one or the other, Apple versus Android? So I wanted to weigh in and get some opinions on my friends who I think would be very knowledgeable on the subject of Apple products. So I'm going to take another quick break, and we'll be back with some some feedback from friends who know Apple really well and what they think about this deal and what they think about Apple products. Welcome back to the show. So for this segment, what I want to do is share some of the feedback and audio clips that I've gotten from friends talking about Apple products and the MLS Apple deal, what they think about it. And these friends who I'm going to be talking to are huge Apple fans, most of them. So the Ferrantes are, Marcello is, Eddie, not so much, but again, he had some really cool, insightful things to share. So first, we're going to dive into what Stephanie and Ryan Ferrante had to say. And both of them are huge Apple fans, and they go into a lot of specific details as to how cool their products are and what could be advantageous for me personally if I were to decide to switch and start using Apple products exclusively. Okay, so here we go. This is comments from Ryan and Stephanie Ferrante.
Hey Albert, so we wanted to discuss a little bit of Apple products with you, see if we can get you to come over to Apple. That'd be kind of cool. But first of all, we wanted to start off with sharing the types of devices that we have and just our experience with it. I've had an iPhone probably since 2008, I think. And it was one of the first ones, I think, and I think I've had an iPhone ever since. We also have, we've had a couple MacBooks, iPads, Apple Pencil, the Apple, of course, Apple TV. We've had an Apple TV. What else do we have? We even have the Apple credit card, which we love and use. I think it's our primary credit card right now.
AirTags as well, Apple AirTags.
That's right. The AirTags are really, really cool too. And what else do we have that's Apple? I think that's, AirPods. We have our AirPods,
Watches.
Our Apple Watches. So we pretty much have, we have an iMac too, like the desktop.
We pretty much have almost
every Apple device.
product
it's a
there
little bit
is.
embarrassing.
Yeah.
But we do have everything that, works in our home, we work off of the Apple products. But anyways, just to give you an overview of what we have or the experience we have, we've been using, I grew up actually in school. They taught us how to use computers using Macs from, kindergarten to 12th grade. So that was what I felt comfortable with using, the majority of my school years. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think for me, one of the things that I really like about Apple is the software that comes standard on, for example, like MacBooks and iMacs. There's very basic software like GarageBand and iMovie. So GarageBand to do any editing on audio files. You can also record, and I've done a lot of that over the years. And as well, iMovie. It's a very easy to learn and access to create different movies and edit them. So I really like that because it comes standard. And so basically, if you buy an iMac or a MacBook, those programs are there and you can use them and learn from them pretty quickly. So I really like that. And of course, you can upgrade to like instead of iMovie, you can get Final Cut Pro, and there's other more advanced applications. But just from the start, just what's there is pretty good. So I like that.
Yeah, and even like on the iPhone, I think there's so many apps that you can use. You can even use GarageBand on your iPhone, your iPad, or anything like that. You can mesh clips together on your phone also. You can make iMovie movies on your phone. So I think that's also what I like, that you can sync it so that whatever you save on, for example, on your cloud or whatever, on your computer, it'll show up on your phone if you want it to. So my files on my phone will show up on my computer, which that's really fun and helpful. And what else do I like about it? And when I was in school, I actually really enjoyed the Apple Pencil. That was really, really cool to use for taking notes and everything, and the applications were nice. And what else do you like?
I would just kind of quickly go through with some of the pros. What are some of the pros and cons with Apple devices? Well, first of all, like how Steph mentioned, it syncs well with other Apple devices. It's fairly easy to use, which is what I really like with pretty much all Apple products. Especially with iPhone, like group messaging, be the blue bubble. And so it's, messaging is really quick, and you can share fairly easy with others.
You can react to messages.
You can react to messages, or if you have like Apple Cash, you can send money through text, which is very nice. So it's very easy to do messaging, interactive messaging. You can also create like shared photo albums, so that's really nice. So you can take pictures, create an album, and just share them with other Apple users. The iCloud access is really nice, so you can use it as an iCloud or a cloud storage. Yeah. The keychain's nice, so it can save all your passwords. And also, especially with like Find My app, which is like Find My iPhone, or you can track where all your devices are at. You can also, if you have AirTags, if you, for example, have an AirTag and it's on your keys and you lost your keys, you can chime them and you can find them. So I really like that it's all in one. Yeah. So those are some of the pros.
Oh, and even with AirTags, my sister has AirTags on her dogs, and they're known for running away for a little while. Now they don't do it so much, but she has found them using the AirTags. So she just puts an AirTag on their collar, and then she'll go on her phone when she notices they're gone, and then she will locate them on the map. So that's super cool for her. And then for cons, I think the only con that we could think of was that it is pretty pricey. Devices are expensive. And some features on the iPhone and stuff like that are very exclusive to Apple users. Like, for example, to compare, for example, with, Hangouts, Google Hangouts, you can get that on an iPhone, you can get that on an Android, any device pretty much. Whereas with Apple, you can't use FaceTime on an Android, for example. So their apps, some of their features and apps are very exclusive to Apple users. So I guess that's a con. And I think that's what we can think of. And then also you just need to stay on top of updates.
Yeah.
Just
that's to make sure that you do the updates as they come out, and to make sure your phone is updated. Sometimes you have to just double check that. So yeah, I mean, I personally, we both love Apple products. We've been so used to using them over the years, and it's easy to use, so we really like it. And we also really enjoy Apple TV
Plus.
Apple TV Plus. There's a lot of great programs on there, shows.
Programs.
Yeah, programs, shows.
The originals.
Yes,
Apple
like the
originals.
So like, there's a lot of great shows that they have on there. So they're coming out with good content. They do like, for example, like the Dodgers every once in a while, they'll do Friday night games. So You can just pull it up on your phone very easily, or on the app
iPad,
or
anything.
apps. Yeah, so it's really nice. We really enjoy the shows that they have on there, and also the functionality. If like you have, for example, we have Discovery Plus. You can go on there and actually see shows. It kind of links it up with Discovery Plus.
Yeah, so it like kind of like, to give an example, if you search a movie or a show, if Apple TV doesn't have it, you can either rent it or buy it. So it's kind of like a one place, like a one-stop
Consolidates.
shop type of thing. So you can, like, if there's a movie they don't have, they give you the option to rent it, which is kind of cool. And then on top of that, like if I searched for a show that I know is on TLC, and I have a subscription to Discovery Plus, it'll say like, hey, we don't have it, but Discovery Plus does. Click here to watch. And you just click it, and it'll just automatically open up for you on the app where it belongs, where they do have it. So I do like that it's a one-stop shop type of thing. And you can rent and download. Oh, that's another thing. You can download episodes.
Yeah.
So when we travel, we like to download, similar to Netflix. You can download the episodes or shows or whatever and watch them while you're traveling. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and just some of the shows that we like.
Ted Lasso.
There's Ted Lasso's great. Trying is
is
really
cool.
good. That's a really good show.
Oh, Acapulco.
Acapulco is good. That's really there's quite a few shows that we really like from Apple TV Plus, and they keep coming out with good content, so we really enjoy it.
And they're pretty quick, it feels like. Just, with networks, sometimes they take like years to put out a new show or whatever. I feel like with Apple TV, they're pretty consistent on like every year you get a new season of whatever you're watching. So I do like that. But yeah, I think those are the pros and cons that we could think of.
So we highly suggest, if anybody's thinking about getting an Apple product, I would say do it. So Albert, if you're considering getting into the Apple side of things, I highly encourage you to do so.
Yeah, for sure. And I think even when it comes to like, if you, for example, with podcasting, like right now we're recording this on my phone through a voice memo, and I'm gonna just email it to you when we're done. So it's kind of cool. I think it should be good quality, but it's really easy to use. And there's just a lot of cool features. So come on over. We will welcome you with open arms. And anything else you want to say?
No, that's about it. I think you'll really enjoy it if you do come over. I know that everybody that has come over to the Apple side, I haven't known anybody yet that said they've regretted it.
That's true. So yeah, hope this was helpful, and let us know if you have any more questions.
So there we go. That was Ryan and Stephanie, and they had some really cool things to share. I like what Ryan had talked about when he mentioned GarageBand and iMovie for software programs that I could potentially be interested in, particularly being a content creator now. I found that when I started recording the podcast, a lot of the software that I was using for editing, like I use a program called Audacity, which Ryan recommended I use. I can use it on my Dell desktop computer, but I cannot use it on my Chromebook or on my Galaxy Flip free phone. It's just not compatible. It doesn't work. So to do editing and recording on the go, it was really difficult and hard. Basically, I had to just do it on my desktop. So being able to use those programs like Ryan suggested, the GarageBand and iMovie would be really cool, especially if I'm going to continue on this hobby with being a content creator. In fact, it kind of seems to me that if you are a content creator, you might be better suited using Apple products. That'd be a question up for debate. So I guess for my tech friends who have an opinion on that, what do you think as far as being a content creator? Is it better to use Apple versus Android or PC? And then some of the things that Stephanie had talked about, the earbuds, that'd be pretty cool thing to have. So I like that. I like what they said. And it kind of seems to me that you don't really have to lean one way or the other. I think sometimes you get fanboys slash fangirls from both sides who just kind of want to like angrily argue that their thing is better. But the reality is you could just probably just pick which aspects of the two companies you like and then use that, which is I think what the sensible thing would be to do. Okay, so let me switch up into comments from my buddy Marcello. This is what Marcello had to say on the subject.
Yo, this is Marcello, and I just heard the news that Apple and the MLS are teaming up to stream all the MLS games on Apple TV. And, I'm an Apple enthusiast, and there's no hiding that. I have been using their products now for the last 20 years. And if I'm being honest with you, I think Apple TV is one of the better deals that you get because you get a lot of like really good content, and I think you pay $6 a month. And so, for people who have an Apple TV already, it's just an added bonus. But when I think about other people who might be at a disadvantage, who don't have, a smart TV or don't have great internet, I think they're going to end up being at a disadvantage through all this because, some areas just don't have the best streaming quality, the best internet connection. So I think you're going to lose a big part of their fandom simply because, the assumption is that they all have internet and they all have smart TV so that they can stream. I know that there is probably like a small subset of fans that are in this boat, but when you have like cable TV, you have all these channels and you're able to watch games because it's part of your TV package. But now that everyone is like piecemealing their TV experience, like buying, CBS Sports or Paramount or, ESPN Plus, it's sort of unfortunate that, it's actually becoming more expensive. And I guess I'm getting off off topic here a little bit, but ultimately I think it's going to be great for people who already have access to great internet, but I think you're going to sort of alienate a few of those fans that, just don't have the ability who just don't have like great internet or don't have a smart TV. And I've been talking for way too long, but I will finish with this so I can end at the 3-minute mark. It's good. I can't blame them, Apple, for trying to get into that market, but they also have to think about who the soccer fan is or who the football fan is and whether or not they'll be able to afford it. And hopefully they do and they don't miss a beat. But, at the same time, you just want to be able to give access to this growing sport to everyone without any barriers so that it'll grow and that maybe sometime in the near future, the U.S. will have a better U.S. national team and, maybe contend for the World Cup and be world champions. Pipe dream, I know, but still. Hopefully I didn't ramble on too much. Anyway, peace and love, mate.
So Marcello brought up some really excellent points about the disadvantage of not having a smart TV or good internet in order to watch the product. So if you were going to be using or switching to Apple TV Plus, it could hinder your ability to watch it properly versus, traditional cable. But again, I cut the cable cord like years ago and I haven't looked back. So I'm very, very happy with my decision in that regard. And then Marcello brings up a good point about knowing who your audience is, like Major League Soccer. Hey, do you understand if you have enough people that are going to want to sign up for Apple TV or is a good number of your fan base already signed up to Apple TV? My guess is they are. again, knowing your audience, I would imagine that a good portion of the soccer fan today is probably Gen Z, who, generation who grew up streaming, probably doesn't really know traditional cable at all. So I think that the majority of the audience probably is or are streaming and are Apple users, or they use Apple, but they're willing to if they don't use Apple devices, say like the iPhone or the iPad, they'll at least have the Apple TV app and they understand how to stream it to your TV, having a Roku, Fire Stick, smart TV, things like that. So yeah, it's interesting the points Marcello brought up. That's what I would say. Yeah. Okay, let's jump into what Eddie had to say on the whole subject.
Hey Albert, I appreciate the invite for this one. So yeah, I just want to chime in on my thoughts regarding the MLS Apple TV juncture that they're about to do. So yeah, I think it's exciting for the game of American soccer. I mean, at this point, the game has been growing over the last 20 years, and we're at the point where it's finally starting to affect like the youth and culture of so many local cities, that now it's about just continuation, the next step of exposure. Like MLS has always had different TV contracts, so just getting out there to the audience, especially to the suburb demographic, which is like the huge output of interest, because that's where a lot of youth teams are, like a lot of club teams from early age into teenage years. I mean, these are all in the suburbs, so the interest is always there. And now with the league growing, especially to the point where you can make full-on careers with just playing soccer, versus before in the 90s. I mean, there was so many soccer teams with players where they would have a side job outside of professional soccer. So where the league is at now, and where Apple TV in terms of streaming is, I mean, this just adds a whole new sports endeavor to the streaming wars, pretty much, because now you have a whole American league that's continuing to grow every year with interest, especially with the World Cup coming up in a few years, and not skipping the one that's at the end of this year in Qatar. It's going to be great for the game. I think with so many companies now purchasing channels, and the streaming wars is getting to the point where it's going to be like the main apps. And I know there's like over a dozen apps, but eventually the companies that own the primary apps, the main ones, they're putting them together. And I feel Apple, especially with the company backing that they have in terms of finances, they're only going to continue to purchase. So MLS got in it early with Apple, which is great. It's gonna really push the game forward, and it's gonna get a lot more eyes on the sport, which means in 10 years from now, by the end of this contract, which I believe is a 10-year contract, you're putting MLS to a whole new generation of eyes, if it hasn't already reached those eyes already. So those future kids that are going to be in youth leagues, that's only going to encourage the game. And obviously the World Cup in 4 years here in the United States, I mean, it's going to be great. I think it's going to be great, and I'm sure that only helps the game even more. Outside of the MLS contract that they just have with Apple itself has been growing a whole ton. I'll admit I am an Android guy, and I haven't been PC. I build custom rigs, or I've bought custom rigs before, so I'm not really invested in terms of my attention in Apple products. That being said, you have to respect the innovations that they have done, and what it forces other companies like Android companies to do on their end to keep pushing the button, right? Apple has a whole set of TV shows. A lot of them are critically acclaimed. And because, it's related to soccer, Ted Lasso is an awesome show. I think it's one of those shows where, it faces the challenges of what a personality can be, like the person that's really nice but that tries to live every day happy, but yet too much of that is not so good. You start suppressing a lot of your own emotions, and you see the challenges that Ted Lasso goes through with the whole cast. You have different characters hitting different characteristic notes, which is, I mean, it from top to bottom, from the writing to the acting, the cast has been incredible with the stuff, and they've produced a really great show. So, you know, that's one of the gems that Apple TV does have. You know, from a subjective point of view, I know all movie and TV is like art; it's all subjective, right? So it's one of those that I feel that if people watch it, man, you get something really great out of it. And Ted Lasso, you know, it's nice to finally see like a soccer show that doesn't seem so cliche. You know, there's been so many that you can honestly, you can even go online and see some. They're very cringeworthy, where it's like they do the soccer game. It already looks fake. It feels fake and staged. So you never really buy into the you know, the environment of a soccer camp, you know, or a soccer game, you know, while they're playing, and you know the trials and tribulations of those players that the actors act out as in other shows that have come before Ted Lasso. It's pretty cringy, right? Because there's never been like production at a higher level, money invested in a higher level to pay for higher skilled writers with experience to really craft a show and story, a whole story arc or side arcs, you know, for other side characters that weave in and out of the show. So Ted Lasso's been that, and it's been great because, you know, I've grown up playing soccer since I can remember, since like 3-4 years old, and it's beautiful, you know, and so it's like perfect timing because the World Cup announcements, Ted Lasso kind of just like being that gem from COVID time into now, and then with MLS being what it is now with Apple, it's a great time to, if you haven't seen Ted Lasso, it's to catch up on that. It's one of Apple TV's biggest gems. I'm sure there's other shows, but that one caught me, and I really feel like the third season is going to be really good. There's characters on there like one named Nathan. Gosh, he's like the Joffrey of soccer, where it's like, man, I never wanted a person to just have a negative outcome more than this guy. I don't want to spoil it for those who haven't seen it, but basically, in short, he kind of plays the antagonist a little bit, but you know, he doesn't come from that. I think the best antagonists of a movie or show always come from a good beginning, right? You know, why did they turn, and the turn that is explained and justified in their actions. Oh man, it's crazy. So I would say that's a really good one, really good show to watch, and I'm really happy it's soccer related because, you know, longtime fan. I know you, Albert, are huge into soccer, and you know, like that's kind of been like most of our backgrounds, you know. So it's gonna be it's been really good.
Okay, so Eddie brought up some good points too. I think he's been, you know, really sensible in the fact that yes, he is an Android guy, but that he recognizes the advancements that Apple's done, and that he appreciates it and enjoys it, and he enjoys Apple TV Plus, just like Stephanie and Ryan had mentioned that they enjoyed it quite a bit, as Marcello did too. So it's kind of cool that yes, it's a cool streaming service where there's so many streaming services out there that if there's a hook that, you know, you'll subscribe and you'll want to watch it. Like, you know, Netflix has so many. Disney Plus has a ton, obviously, with the Marvel and Star Wars shows, and then Peacock, Paramount, HBO Max, all the streaming services that you could subscribe to have their hook to want to entice people to want to sign up for them. I think this will be enticing for users such as myself. In fact, actually, just this past weekend, I went ahead and pulled the trigger and signed up for Apple TV Plus because I do have the week free trial. And I'm planning to stick around because I've heard nothing but good things. Everyone who I've talked to seems to really enjoy the service. It seems like Eddie does as well, and the Ferrantes and Ryan, the Ferrantes and Marcello. So I think it's a good decision. I think it's a good way moving forward, signing up for the service and then getting really, really excited for when Major League Soccer officially kicks off their deal with Apple next year for the 2023 season. So now leads the question, would I consider getting an iPhone or iPad? At this time, probably not, but I'd be willing to hear more people what they have to say. Or if I do, it probably would just be the iPad and still keep using the Android phone, which I'm more comfortable with. But I mean, you can just get an iPad and just for enjoying content and being able to have the best of both worlds, I guess, which I think seems to be the sensible thing to do. But I am interested from my tech friends and people who do have an opinion. If you really think strongly, yes, you should go only with Apple, or yes, you should only go with Android, why would you pick one over the other, basically, is what I'd like to ask for the listeners. Cool. So as I mentioned, I mean, I'm not the super tech expert, but I enjoy talking about it, and I do enjoy hearing what other people have to say, especially those who are more knowledgeable than me. So I'm definitely planning to do another tech episode talking about cool things, because I mean, tech's really cool. There's so much to talk about when it comes to that. And again, I'm really, really excited for Major League Soccer to return. I'm really excited to catch the LA Galaxy. I do hope that with Apple, I mean, they produce some really cool documentaries, so it would be cool if they were able to do that for teams, to do something like Spectrum had done with the Backstage Lakers, Backstage Galaxy. I'd love to see content like that on Apple TV Plus for the LA Galaxy and for other teams throughout the league too. I think that'd be really fun. Great. Well, thank you so much for listening to this special tech episode of the Casting for Fun podcast. And new episodes coming every Tuesday for sure. I'm not going to deviate from that. But if something comes up, exciting news that I really wanted to share and talk about, like this deal between MLS and Apple, I'll definitely do an additional episode just so I can talk about it. And I like this idea of actually getting pre-recorded comments from friends and being able to insert it into the podcast. I think it makes it pretty interesting and fun. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Okay, thanks everyone. You've been listening to the Casting for Fun podcast.